Richard Rawlings walked into that courtroom on a cool September morning, flashing the same confident grin fans had seen on Fast and Loud. But when the judge read out the sentence, everything shifted. His face drained, his knees buckled, and the man who once bragged about million-dollar flips crumpled against the railing as cameras snapped furiously. The so-called king of cars wasn't leaving a free man. The empire he built on speed, smoke, and swagger was about to be unmasked for what it really was. The packed courtroom went silent as Rawlings lowered his head, and America's most trusted car guy suddenly looked like its most notorious con. But how did Richard Rawlings go from hero to handcuffs? It all started years earlier, under that relentless Texas sun. Richard Rawlings, born in 1969, was a hustler long before TV cameras followed him. He worked his way into the automotive scene, buying and flipping cars with nothing more than street smarts, charm, and an eye for opportunity. By the time he stumbled upon a dusty old garage in Dallas, he saw not just scrap metal but the foundation of an empire. That garage would become Gas Monkey Garage, the birthplace of a brand that soon exploded across American living rooms. When Fast and Loud premiered in 2012, it was like lightning in a bottle. The format was simple: find a beat-up muscle car, fix it under impossible deadlines, flip it for big money, and celebrate with a cigar and a cold beer. But what made it work was Richard himself, the fast-talking, flashy shirt-wearing showman who turned rust into gold on live television. For 8 years, the show dominated Discovery's lineup, pulling in millions of viewers who might not have cared about cars but loved the rush of the deal. Richard wasn't just fixing cars, he was selling the American dream, complete with burnouts, barbecues, and big paydays. Off-camera, the Gas Monkey brand grew into something bigger than the show. Richard opened bars, restaurants, a live music venue, and launched an empire of merchandise that carried the snarling Gas Monkey logo. Fans lined up for selfies, car shows, and beers under neon signs that turned Rawlings into a rock star of car culture. He partnered with Dodge, showed off builds at SEMA, and strutted through auction houses like he owned the place. From Instagram posts on private jets to staged burnouts in million-dollar muscle cars, Rawlings created a lifestyle brand around himself, and people bought into it completely. But as with any empire built on flash, cracks began to show. When Fast and Loud ended in 2020, the energy that fueled the Gas Monkey name dimmed. The bars closed. Merch slowed. The YouTube channel never hit the same heights. Without the gloss of TV editing, questions bubbled up: how much of the show was staged? Were those six-figure builds really as solid as they looked under the lights? Whispers started about unpaid bills, messy partnerships, and shaky business decisions. That's when the rumors hit. Stories on TikTok and late-night YouTube videos claiming Rawlings was caught in a Mustang scandal, that he'd been indicted, that his empire was rotten underneath. What seemed like internet gossip began to sound more believable as fans compared receipts, vints, and even paused old episodes to scrutinize details. The line between Richard's TV persona and his real business blurred until nobody knew which was which. It only took a tax audit to pull the first thread. In early 2023, the IRS opened a routine file with Richard's name on it. What they expected to find was just another set of messy books from a high-profile entrepreneur. What they actually found was a mismatch between lifestyle and numbers. Restoration expenses looked too neat. A custom Mustang's VIN didn't match up with federal databases. What looked at first like a typo turned out to be a VIN that didn't exist at all. The Mustang in question had been paraded around car shows, shown off online, and hyped as a record-breaking build. But under the paint, the paperwork told a different story. As investigators dug deeper, they realized the problem wasn't just one car. Sales records were missing. Emissions tests had vanished. Parts expenses didn't line up with actual builds. Even Richard's own YouTube uploads gave investigators evidence, frames that accidentally revealed VIN plates that didn't match any official records in Texas. The deeper they went, the darker it got. Behind a locked metal door inside Gas Monkey Garage, investigators uncovered what employees quietly called the cage. On the outside, it looked like storage for spare parts. But behind a hidden wall sat an entire forgery operation: blank VIN plates, laser etching machines, printers for inspection stickers, and ledgers mapping out which salvaged shells were being reborn with new identities. Cars that had been wrecked, flooded, or stolen were given fresh lives as rare classics, sold to collectors for six figures without a hint of their true pasts. Employees later testified that they thought it was just part of the restoration business. They were told to grind off old stamps and weld on new ones. Some witnessed late-night cash pickups from collectors with no paperwork filed. Even Richard's videos teased secret projects that viewers thought were new builds, when in reality, investigators recognized the reinforced doors of the cage. The scheme reached an international scale when a European buyer wired $1.2 million for what he believed was an authentic Shelby GT 500. Richard himself sold the story, walking him through the gleaming paint and pristine details. But when the collector tried registering the car overseas, customs flagged the documents. That single call set off alarms that traveled across borders and straight to U.S. investigators. Suddenly, what looked like an isolated fraud became evidence of an international operation. And through it all, the TV show itself had been Richard's greatest weapon. Every episode of Fast and Loud doubled as free advertising, a staged storyline that blurred fact and fiction. The barn finds, the tight deadlines, the celebratory burnouts, it all looked authentic, and that authenticity sold cars. Buyers trusted the man they saw on screen. But when the mask slipped, those same episodes became evidence, time-stamped proof of the scams hidden in plain sight. When the truth surfaced, the collapse was instant. Within 72 hours, forums lit up with fans dissecting old episodes, comparing VINs, and pointing out inconsistencies. Collectors questioned every gas monkey build in their garages. Auction houses blacklisted anything tied to Rawlings. Sponsors pulled logos, Discovery scrubbed him from its platforms, and the value of gas monkey-branded cars plummeted. What was once a brand of high-octane glamour became radioactive overnight. The empire Richard built in 8 years collapsed in 3 days. And for the car world, the message was chilling. If someone as famous and trusted as Richard Rawlings could pull off a scheme this big under the bright lights of reality TV, who else might be doing the same in the shadows? Richard Rawlings didn't just lose his empire, he lost the one thing you can never buy back: trust.